Morning. Today we're going to be talking about an interesting biological relationship, and this is between two large organisms. One is the nation state, and the other is the international corporation. And they have a very interesting and variable predator-prey relationship. Sometimes one takes the lead, and the other is the prey, and often it reverses. Going back in history, a interesting period when the international corporation was the predator. We can go back to the East India Company during the British Empire, when basically this set up the entire foreign policy of Britain. And we can go to the Opium Wars, again with Britain, where a commercial interest established the relationship of Britain with China. Of course, in the modern era, this has tended to reverse. The nation state has been the predator, and the corporations, the international corporations, have been the prey. And they go into a very interesting type of interaction. Very often you see extreme cases like Argentina or Venezuela, where the nation state simply gobbles up the assets of the corporation, and not too much that the corporation can do about it, except to make sure that the value of the currency tends to disappear, but that doesn't mean they get their possessions back. At the moment, the big problem seems to be that the nation state are just not able to get their taxes and everything that they theoretically erode out of the corporation. And there are a number of things that are being done about it. I'll have to admit that I'm on the side of the nation state, and because basically the international corporations are getting a little too effective. They simply don't pay taxes. And so there's a lot of things that the countries are doing to make sure that they get their fair taxes, and I'm in agreement with this. One policy you see being played out right now is in Switzerland, where the U.S. has put a tremendous amount of legal pressure on the Swiss banks, and they're being forced to the wall, and they are making all kinds of adjustments. A number of them are already under indictment, legal action, and things look as if it is changing. We are pretty much in good territory. There's one thing that's holding up the final disposition between the U.S. and Switzerland, and that is an amended treaty that has not been ratified by us. And believe it or not, the only thing holding this back is Senator Rand Paul, who correctly feels that this is an imposition upon privacy for the person who has a bank account. And I imagine this will play out in it being ratified, but the general tendency is very good at this time. The other area is internationally. We have had the G20 meeting, and they have adopted a long-term and short-term plan to affect all the little gimmicks and some big gimmicks that keep corporations from paying taxes. This will be a long process. It's very complicated, and they're very, very clever people who are doing things to simply not pay taxes. But the direction is good, and the United States, for once, is fully joined in on it, and the outlook looks good that perhaps international corporations will pay a little bit of taxes. This has been a really big thing with respect to the United States. We find that somehow or other you have these huge corporations, and they're obviously making a lot of money, and somehow or other the tax rate is very, very low. And as someone who has been paying taxes for many years without all the gimmicks, I'm in favor of that. So they're getting somewhere. The U.S. is in a funny position with this. We are in a situation where we don't have a lot of the tax sources that some of the European countries have. For one thing, our income taxes, which I think are substantial, are simply nowhere as high as they are in Europe. And the other thing is that they have this huge value-added tax, which is able to get money. It's like a super sales tax. It's added at multiple stages. And so they have this to supplement income tax and corporation tax. So they're not really as dependent on it. As a result of this, the United States relies heavily on the theoretical value of corporation taxes, although really very little gets collected. And we end up in the funny situation that we have all this money being earned overseas, and the corporations simply don't want to bring them back. And we're pleading with them, trying to bribe them. No, it's not going anywhere. And what happens is that all the business, all the activity, all the factories get diverted overseas. And this is not great. The immediate short-term approach, I would think, is to just, in the process of figuring out our whole tax system, just assume pretty much exactly what the rules are overseas, and as a result, get rid of the favoritism where corporations will find it advantageous to just go to certain countries, and these will not be the United States. This is, for us, at the present system, it's lose-lose. We lose the factories, we lose the research activities, and we also don't gain much in the way of taxes. This should be part of a general look at our whole tax system. Our system is so fraught with just gimmicks, special, strange rules that that any sensible person looking at it will simply say, where did this thing come from? And if you get that feeling, where did this thing come from? It didn't come from anything good. And you can pretty much just use your naive intuition going through the tax code and looking at it and say, what is this? What is this doing here? And that's really all a sensible person needs to change the whole system. This should get started. See you next time.